You're listening to the Banrion Show. It's 8 in the evening. Tune in every night at 8 to listen to the Banrion Show on Irish News Radio or ITV.ie. And you can contact anything that you've heard or if anything you'd like to discuss at news@irishnews.net. You're listening to the Banrion Show on ITV.ie and Irish News Radio. Today we're having a quick chat with Eileen, just catching up what's happening with the UN, the EU and the insane, treacherous Irish government. All of one, just complete evil. So how have you been?
Just complete evil, that's good, yeah, that's about it. Oh, it's beyond belief. And yeah, every week, there's no break, you know. And so during this week there was the demonstration. It was on Facebook events, and somebody set up a demonstration, not my Taoiseach.
Sad news about that was very few people showed up, which I was quite surprised about. Like, considering there was like 2,000 people who said that they were going, and whatever.
It was at 3 o'clock now. It was at 3 o'clock in the day. A lot of people were working.
Yeah, whoever organised it didn't think it fairly well through, I suppose.
And she was doing another one the next day at 6 o'clock. So I think a lot of people would have gone to that one because it was she gave two options. So
okay, it would be not well thought out. Probably should be on Sundays or something like that.
Well, it's, you know, they had the whole road set up. Did you see it on Facebook? They had the whole of Molesworth Street blocked with the Garda and blocked with barriers on all sides. So they're obviously watching social media, you know.
Oh God, yeah. They were expecting a huge hullabaloo.
And they were determined to prevent any disruption to their little regime. Yeah. And it really is turning into a regime.
Oh God, yeah. And what do you think?
Because, I mean, you're allowed to protest. You have a right to protest. It's a peaceful demonstration. You have every right in a so-called democracy, which we're not living in. It's terrible news. Definitely. A lot of people haven't got that through their heads, but we're not living in any democracy at all.
Absolutely nowhere near a democracy. What did you think of Macron banning protests because of the...
I think it's unbelievable. I just realised today that I think there's 12 people dead, and I just can't get it.
Dead, wow.
Yeah, 2,000 injured, and I thought there was one person dead, and then this morning I realised there's, I think, 12. That's insane. I think they died, some of them, from their injuries.
Wow.
You know, I saw one, well, I told you last week, one person with no hand there, I couldn't believe it. It's brutal over there, brutal, and it's only going to get worse. Because now they're so annoyed. He's another little stooge, dictator.
He's so annoyed that they feel like they have the right to protest his horrible regime.
It's violent, though. You know, they're firing bullets and plastic bullets, and like these people aren't armed. For the most of them, they're not armed.
Of course they're not armed. They're just
outrageous. They were going over with a helicopter, and they were flying, shooting tear gas into the crowd.
Jesus Christ.
As if it was like the whole city was under siege. Paris is really under siege, and it's not just Paris, it's Bordeaux, and it's spread out.
Do you think that they'll go down fighting, do you think, or?
Now they want him gone. Now they're so angry with him that I think they'll take his head off. Yeah, no, they won't give up. The French won't allow this to carry on.
So do you think he'll be gone then within a amount of time?
I think things are going to escalate, and I think they're going to seize control by creating a crisis, you know. But anyway, order out of chaos is their motto. That's really what they live by, the elite.
Yeah.
So it will stop everyone dead in their tracks, you know. It will disperse. That's a possibility.
And what do you think of the Irish guys getting locked up for 3 months?
Well, you see, the court system is, you know, I actually happened to be listening to Claire Byrne at 1 o'clock. I just happened to hear it, and the journalist was saying, she started going on a roll, you know. There was some talk of secret societies, men with black cloaks on and wigs, and they thought they were above normal people, you know, and they were hiding their criminal activity. So I think You know, Claire Brown must have got a puck in the studio because I could hear her trying to shut her off. It was hilarious because it was live. She was definitely being told to get her off, you know, and that's exactly, she blurted it out, but that's exactly what he said in court. So I think they're jailing him as it's kind of payment, you know, it's punishment. But I mean, there was a reason he didn't want, there was a reason he wasn't in agreement with what they had written down, you know, in the judicial.
Scary days. Canada, another feckin' fecked up country. Like, there apparently yellow protesters moving into Canada, and they have another Leo there. Same carbon copy to Leo. Another idiot. Open borders, full destruction of our country.
Well, Trudeau is an absolute, he's another pawn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But he's a frightening pawn, actually.
He's more frightening than Leo.
He's actually frightening. He's an absolute. Well, no, not more frightening, just as bad.
Yeah. Because Leo, I think, with Trudeau, like, you can't really tell as much hatred. I think it's so obvious with Leo, his hate for the Irish people. And it comes through, like, everything he says, it just kind of shines through. You can just see his deep distaste for Irish culture, Irish heritage, Irish blood, Irishness in together. He's really just anti. He so wants multicultural at any price. And of course he doesn't care the deaths that it would cause or, you know, how many Irish women will be raped or anything like that. He has absolutely no. In fact, I think he'd almost welcome it because he has so much hatred for the Irish.
He's not he's totally indifferent. We're just we're the indifferent, you know, we're of no consequence to him, you know.
Yeah.
He was down at Salesforce during the week. They're opening a huge campus, and Salesforce are another big LGBT pusher, you know. And they're going to be handing $1 million to Educate Together, and that is going to be again about promoting gender neutrality and brainwashing kids. So they're walking into Ireland and 1,500 jobs, but they're taking for granted that it won't be given to Irish people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you saw the front on Twitter of the National Party, there's a big photo of all the girls. I don't know if they're all the girls in Australia, and they have a hashtag, give us a reason to return home. And there's a huge gang of them, you know. It's frightening to see all those young nurses and that over there, while we import every week more and more migrants. And, you know, in the journal.ie during the week, they brought out an article because they were trying to convince people that this UN Migration Pact was not at all what people are, you know, saying that some people are really asleep. They need to wake up.
Dumb. I think
and the comments you read down at the bottom, they really are completely sleepwalking into this. It is.
I think though some of them actually are paid trolls, and others are just completely have a hatred towards the Irish culture and wanted dons, and other ones, and some are actually paid trolls. I actually do believe that Leo is.
Oh, there definitely are. Yeah, he actually suggested that at one stage that there would be an army of trolls.
Yeah.
He actually got caught suggesting that, and we would be paying for it. The taxpayer would be paying for it. Just
because when you hear some of the stupid comments, I did a program about Northern Ireland. The situation came up about, you know, the border, and basically, you know, about Brexit and the British voted for this and la la la. There was a few trolls that got on and said, "Oh, you're pro-British, typical," and all this sort of stupid comments. And it was complete stupid comments. Reading through them, it was like they were paid trolls. It's like, oh, the Irish government don't want the border, it's definitely all to do with the British. And I'm like, the British haven't suggested the border. The British will be the Irish. And the Irish scare tactics that Simon Covey is all about. He's all about like going, oh, the Irish in England and the English in Ireland will have to, get green cards. It's all going to be like complete scare tactics when the freedom of movement between Ireland and the United Kingdom has been there since 1922. Nothing to do with the EU or the
Yeah, but I don't believe any of this Brexit nonsense, And then you have this lunatic May. You see, you have to, this May, Theresa May comes across as she's very, nice speaking voice and diction and everything, but she is suggesting now that paedophiles be allowed to adopt. Now, you know what I mean? Like, you have to realise that these people take orders. They are not actually, they have no power whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd say she's been, because the British are, pushing for this. She only just barely got through the no confidence vote, which was, I don't know how she managed to get through that. And then, but obviously that Brexit deal wouldn't go through the House of Commons. But anybody with half a brain cell was going to say, there's no way that's going to go through. Why would that deal go? It's completely worse than being in the EU.
I think they're duping the Irish, and they want to recover the whole island. They haven't, for example, given the Irish rights, the so-called Good Friday Agreement, which I'm starting to believe now was a con.
Yeah.
Because they haven't, in all those years, 20 years, they haven't given the Irish people up north language rights, which is part of the deal. It was part of the agreement. They never put that part of the deal in action. And at the same time, we gave up the ownership of Ireland in Articles 2 and 3 for peace. We gave up the ownership as such.
But the EU has it. It wasn't the UK.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't even mind it being the UK and being...
Well, I would mind, because it is our island.
But I'd prefer that than being bloody part of the EU. This is much more in connection with the United Kingdom than we do with the bloody EU. I'd rather be with that, and, as long as they don't flood us with their blood.
Well, they will. I mean, why are the British not even aware of the UN Migration Pact that she signed?
Oh, God, yeah. I think they are, but I don't know. I think...
No, a lot of millions of them don't know.
Brexit thing. But in their head, I think that they think that their freedom is through the Brexit. And I think a lot of them are aware, but I think once they're through Brexit, she's out, they'll get a leader in, and it can be stopped, I suppose, their view, because they were told, like we were, it's not legally binding. It's scary days. Like, there's just so much treacherous in governments. It's quite shocking.
Well, it's funny to see the comments, when you looked at Gemma O'Doherty during the week about the Ben Gilroy thing, and apparently the plaintiff's name on the order for the community service was not the same as the plaintiff in court. But the minute he mentioned secret societies, and I think they really wanted him out of the way, they wanted to punish him. But anyway, the funny comments that are coming in now, because this guy, Mark Malone, Sound Migration, he literally trolls the comments. But he is getting as good back, I can tell you, from people that are telling him, the lefties have their trendy parties, but there's no refugees at them. Funny enough. Prawn cocktail socialists. So, they know, they're a bit worried about people waking up, but it's great to see some of those comments. The people are aware of secret societies, and they're aware of this, all these subversive NGOs that we're paying for. We're actually paying for those cocktail parties, you know that?
Mm.
It's just a joke.
Oh, completely. Sure, I remember when there was all this bullshit theory and stuff started coming out, and they would literally walk past Irish on the street begging money to go to this cocktail party thing, which was €50 a ticket in, and it was lashing raining on the day they had it. And it was just like, you're walking over your own to go in and pay a €50 ticket just to be seen with the right people. It's such complete bullshit, where they don't actually give a shit of their own. Like, their own were on the streets, dying on the streets, and nobody cares about the Irish dying on the streets. It's all about bloody Syria, which the war is over. There's people listening about it as well.
No, they really are subversive government. People need to realise that they don't work for us.
No.
They really don't. And the UN Migration Pact, you're worried about the EU, but I think the whole thing is going to collapse.
I hope.
And they're going to deliberately. It's going to be by design. And I think it's the UN that you should be worried about, because they are going to use climate change. You know, they brought out the Vanguard report. They were on the Vanguard report. Have you heard of that? That we won't be able to. It's a scientific study that in the future, in the near future, because it's coming down the tracks really quickly, that we won't be able to. We shouldn't be eating meat and dairy. If you remember,
already there's been stuff on the news about health things.
I'll tell you what they're up to. Do you remember a while ago they were all encouraging the farmers to invest in dairy, and the quotas were going to lift the quotas, and all of the farmers went and they invested heavily, bought more cows, bought all this expensive machinery. Remember that? That wasn't so long ago.
Yeah.
And now they're telling them they're going to have to stop producing meat and dairy. Or I think they're going to put carbon tax on people and on your steak and everything in the supermarket. I really believe they're trying to get them into debt and bankrupt them.
Absolutely. Well, they want their property. They want their land.
They want their land. And on top of that, we have now 159 post offices at the end of January that have closed officially. 159 post offices right across Ireland. And that doesn't even include the Garda stations. So literally they are trying to depopulate those areas, and they want the next generation to move towards towns and cities that they intend to flood with Africans and Asians. Mostly Africans, but, I know people can't believe that's real, but actually it is, because the UN will remove all borders.
It happened. Like, you put Dublin in a spot the paddy, it's already happened. Like, there isn't even any imagination. It's, to see if this is happening, it's already happened. It's done.
Well, it's happened for a certain amount of people. They're 1/3 that are awake, and hopefully a few more now are waking. It's very, very urgent they wake up quickly. But they will wake up when it's in their town. When the migrants outnumber the actual locals. But I really think that they're going to try and bankrupt those farmers. They are such liars. Only a couple of years ago they were going on about lifting milk quotas, and they should invest in dairy and they could make a lot of money and all this. They've done it deliberately, and now they're actually putting back on that.
Yeah.
They're trying to indebt them and get them to sell, force them to sell.
Absolutely. Well, that's what they need to. This all is about land grab. It's literally like a war without. It's a clever way of taking people's land and property. And if you break down their culture, their identity, they're more likely not to fight. So basically, you're just trying to take the land. So this Northern Irish
and the budget, the social welfare budget, the biggest in the whole budget is the social welfare budget, and people won't have their post office. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to a bank. So the bank gets control of all those billions. People are going to have to go into town or drive 8 miles if they have a car to get to the nearest town, and they're going to have to either go to the post office in a town if there is one, or get their social welfare pensions and all through the bank.
Well, banks are becoming cashless now.
It's like that people, like these elite, they have all these massively, with our money, with our stolen money from all over the world, they have these amazing secret organizations, and one of them is called the Tavistock Institute, and they come up with all these plans. Nobody in there working there has a right to even speak. It used to be run by the CIA and all this, and they come up with all this LGBT, but they've been doing it for decades. They're just rolling it out now. We think it's only happening in the last 5 years that everything is gender becoming gender neutral. But they've planned this for decades. Like on Twitter yesterday, there was a thing trending called "Expose Christian Schools," and it was in America mostly. Everybody was. Now, why are they attacking Christian schools? They're attacking Christian schools because Christianity has to go, because they can't bring in their gender neutral sex education and all for 5-year-olds. They can't do it with the Christian ethos still there. So they need it removed completely. This is a war, and in the future, for 10, even 5 years from now, I dread to think, they want to remove heterosexuality in the core family unit. Now, why are they not exposing Islam schools? That's what I want to know.
Well, they won't go near Islam, sure.
That won't be trending on Twitter. Nobody's complaining about the indoctrination or the ethnic hatred that's taught in those schools. Not a word about it. But they want to remove Christianity from the schools. And in America, they're a little bit ahead, but maybe 2 years ahead of us. We always get them. It always eventually gets here. But this is a worldwide operation. Do as thou wilt, you know. And then May has ordered a review of current legislation that would prevent paedophiles from adopting children, claiming it was a breach of their human rights. Now listen, we all have to get over May. She's actually not who she says she is, you know.
Yeah, I know.
We really have to get over it. We have to realise this is real and slap ourselves in the faces, you know. They're actually actors, paid actors. No one in their right mind would come up with such nonsense, you know.
I know, it was obvious she was treacherous. She's kept the British in for 2.5 years after they voted out. And now she's almost like handing over Northern Ireland to the EU. She didn't fight. I mean, that was, whether we like it or not, or what we think of it, they consider that's their land. And she didn't really fight for it. She almost was willing to hand it over with that Brexit, the bullshit Brexit deal. But she would hand over Northern Ireland to the EU.
I think they actually want to recoup the whole of Ireland.
Absolutely.
And we would just be
they do. We have
an illusion.
Already.
And this woman, what's her name up there, that North, Eileen, they're having secret meetings there behind closed doors, and I tell you, I'd like to be listening to to some of those, because I have a very bad feeling they are plotting. She won't give the language rights to the Irish people living in the North for the last 20 years, but she would gladly take over the Republic. I mean, might be living in an illusion that we're living in a Republic, but they don't actually call us a Republic. They call us the South non-stop, the South. They insult us by calling us the South. And then the Republic is removed from all the documents in the EU. It's just called Ireland.
Yeah. Well, you know,
there won't be any republic in the future. The UN intends to remove all borders and all sovereignty, and they will do it through climate change and bullying and migration and so-called human rights. It's disguised via deception as tolerance and human rights. And, you know, that's what people need to realise. It's really do as thou wilt, and they will be the bullies.
Yeah, well, you can see it already. Like, I think the first off is the EU. Land grab starts from the EU, and then it gets transferred onto the UN. Once you break down all of Europe, and you take over Europe, and you take even over countries that aren't even in Europe and start calling them Europe, then it's easy. You can transfer it all into the UN, because then you've done the same with others, like you put Canada and America together. All of Africa has this. It's called African Union, the same as the European Union, and they've already done that. They've been working on the African Union for a while. Now, there's only 1 or 2 countries in Africa that refuse to join, but it's the same idea. You go in there and...
Well, they don't know they're being used as pawns. It's not actually the migrants' fault. They're obviously going to... If migration becomes a human right, and any objection a criminal offence, anybody can get on a plane at any time and fly to Dublin or Cork or anywhere, and just they have absolutely every right to walk through They're going to become a citizen of the UN. They will have a UN passport as such. There won't be any countries anymore. That's the plan. I know people don't believe this, but this is actually what they plot at Davos and Bilderberg and G7. It's because at the same time, you see, they're manipulating the people through RTE and through the propaganda that they spew out on the Late Late Show every weekend. Half of it is entertainment on the Late Late, and half of it is propaganda to brainwash and make people submit to their will. Because, they're going on about celebrating 1919, 100 years in government and all of that. That's all a mirage. It's like a mirage. You have to just push the cobwebs out of your eyes and look at things in the cold light of day. That is actually to make you believe that you live in a so-called republic. You don't.
I see what's happened to them. They don't seem to care, but I think most people know they don't. They're happy. They've been sold this EU thing. Now, not so much the UN, because I don't think the majority of people know about the UN. They've been sold this EU project, and it's great, because Ireland couldn't survive on its own. It was too broke. It's a terrible time. They're sold on this belief that without the EU, Ireland would be bust, and they wouldn't be able to survive, they wouldn't be able to eat. And they genuinely believe this.
You must be joking. They want our land. They want our huge fishing territory, the biggest in Europe. They want we have a fabulous country, and I'm telling you, they have never gone away.
But you see, unfortunately, people see and believe, the media have convinced them that we were in a terrible state before the EU. We were so poor.
Well, the propaganda, the brainwash.
Completely brainwash.
Absolute brainwash. And yesterday, the yellow vests were there yesterday, by the way, and these Antifa, a little group Antifa turned up, and they got nearly boxed by one of the yellow vests. He wanted to box their face, and I tell you, they really needed it. They needed to be boxed. And then the journalists that turned up, they told them, fake news, go away. You didn't help us when we needed you. You're writing rubbish. Fake news. And that is the truth. They're right.
Well, they're
dead right.
There's a whole lot.
So the journalists were heckled, But they had it coming.
Oh, they really do. They deserve a lot worse than that.
They do, yeah.
They really do. For the lies and, genuinely trying to talk to people who don't understand. And it's like, it's insane. They're so convinced that if we aren't in the EU, we will starve to death. And it's kind of frightening.
I think they're planning to starve us a bit, as you know. I do. I really do.
Absolutely. Another fact.
Because you see, if they take away if they have control of our food supply, and that's what they want, they're going to, tell people, well, you can't eat this, and you can't drive that, and you can't go into that area of the city. And this is about enslavement, and this is global socialism / communism, but dressed up in Western clothes, so you believe you live in a so-called Western society, but you don't. It mightn't look like Russia, it mightn't look like it, but it is the same. The salaries go lower and lower, and the taxes get higher and higher, and people get poorer and poorer. And the number one of the Communist Manifesto is to remove private property, not only remove religion and destroy the family unit in order to destroy the nation, but to remove private property. And they can do that bit by bit, because the next generation, all those nurses I saw there in the National Party there's at least 1,000 of them there, with the hashtag give us a reason to come home.
But that younger generation really has no other memory, and that's the thing.
They're impoverishing them.
There will be a force on kids to go to this Educate Together, and they will force the other schools out, so you'll have no choice. And homeschooling, they will criminalise it.
Well, if all of these they confuse the Catholic Church with Christianity, and they confuse who actually is in control of the Catholic Church. But that generation going in now into school, when this LGBT, where they're pouring $1 million, I think it's $1 million, like €850,000. This will be only to brainwash them. It's not going to be for teaching them history, or even though our history is not the real history.
Talk about history being gone because it makes people racist, history, apparently. So there is talk about taking it off the curriculum.
Well, there's discussion about bringing it back, but I mean, why are they taking it off in the first place? You know why? To give them, to make them rootless. To make them little consumers so they don't have any patriotism or a national identity.
Yeah.
So they know nothing.
National anthem.
Make them little slaves.
Every night on the on like TV, going to bed, used to be played in pubs.
Oh God!
Part of who we were. You know, we'd hear it all the time. When was the last time you heard the national anthem?
Yeah, it's bit by bit, you see. Remember Maurice McCabe? I mean, I looked at that documentary at Maurice McCabe, and he said they used to do fitness and classes and everything like these. They used to train physical fitness to become a Garda. They've removed all that as well. Right. They do these things in degree by degree by degree, bit by bit, until one day you wake up and you're in a foreign country. They don't want you to realise what's going on. It's a slow process. Well, it's not actually that slow. Some of it's hidden. But do you know what I mean? You wake up and...
In Dublin lately, you'll see that it's not slow at all. It's completely gone. There's nothing that I recognise. Like, I was talking to somebody and was like, you know, when I grew up, there was something called Moore Street. It wasn't Africa. It was actually Moore Street, where you would hear Irish people, 2 for £1, pennies and apples, don't want them, don't want them. I was part of my culture. It was part of my identity. It was part. You'd go in this magical place at Christmas called Switzer's, and you'd queue up for hours, and the windows were like unbelievable. It was like a magic land. And this was my Dublin. That was the Dublin I grew up with, the Dublin I identify. But now I go into Dublin, there's nothing, not the smell, not the sounds, not the noises, not the tastes, nothing of my culture, I reckon.
Well, that's the point. That's what they want, you know. And I mean, some of those visas are, you know, residence permits you can get, say, from Saudi Arabia or from China. You can get them for 50,000 euros. So if you invest 50,000 euro, you know, it's quite a small amount. You can, I mean, they're flooding in. People, there's Chinese millionaires. A lot of them, some of them would have that money. It should just, no problem to them.
I know a lot of other people who've just taken Irish passports as easier. I know a lot of...
There was there were Saudis that bought a GIA club, or they invested in a GIA club for a relatively, I think it was 500,000 or something, but it gave them the residency, you know, here.
Absolutely disgraced. They really are disgraced.
That was the only reason they did it. I mean...
Sure, even one of the bombings, they all were caught and they had Irish passports. Now, obviously, the names weren't Irish. It wasn't so long ago, it was a few years back, when they went to check, they all had Irish passports. So this Irish passport bullshit has been happening for a while.
They're leaving Poland. Even the criminals, I saw they were leaving Poland to come to fly into Dublin. It's a free-for-all here. They're not even staying in Poland, the criminals there. There's much more money to be made in Dublin. Higher salaries, easy access.
And easier getting
You can just walk through the ports.
Disgrace.
I mean, they're just literally running up the street when they get off the boat in Dublin port. They're running up the street and then they disappear into the crowd. And there's serious consequences, like there was that one punch attack. There's quite a few punch attacks, you know, where the people's lives have been destroyed. They're either in a coma, or they have, you know, they've slurred speech, or they've limps. There's a young guy in Galway that, you know, he was in a bar and he was a student and he was working in a bar and he went to help a woman that was being harassed by a migrant, and he got a one-punch attack. And everything is completely, his life is, he was sobbing in court because he has slurred speech and a limp, and his whole life is turned around, you know, in a mess. I hope he'll recover 100%. But these things, you know, there's another Lithuanian, one-punch attack, had a fight over a pool table, and they just had a christening. And the 2 baby girls, you know, and he died. He went into a coma, and the husband died. And she's 28 now with 2 little girls. And left on her own, like as a single mother. It's crazy. One punch. Over some fight over pool table, you know. He wanted to use it, this Lithuanian rapist criminal with loads of convictions. They can just fly in. And the Irish guy said, well, he was winning it, and he just wanted to finish the game. And they're all sobbing in court as well, the whole family.
That's the problem with open borders. You need to have a knowledge of who these...
Anyone can just come in here. It doesn't matter if they have 10 convictions. And then the poor guy, Joe Soap, that meets them, their life could be ruined.
You know, there'll be more Muslims, more Islamic coming in,
Well, only if we allow it. I mean...
That's when things get really scary.
I think things are going to get very serious. I think it's going to be, I think they're planning a bank crash or something to subdue the sheeple, to frighten them through fear, you know.
Well, it's working. I mean, I don't think
that kids of 5 should be getting a sex education. I think it's absolutely beyond belief. There were demonstrations in Italy about pro-family people, as big as pro-life, about 100,000 people.
Fantastic leader. I don't know how he's still alive, because he's absolutely the only leader
well,
of the country.
This was separate to him, but there was just families that were annoyed that their kids were there was talk about giving them a sex education at only 5. And they took to the streets, but then you had this Antifa gang, LGBT, getting down on their knees, blocking them, kissing each other, like violently French kissing, and blocking they are totally anti-family, they just don't want the core family unit to exist anymore, because it's not tolerant enough. So the minority are now bullying the majority. And I mean, they're Nazis. They're the fascists.
And particularly in Ireland, there won't be any stop. In fact, they will probably be hailed as heroes for doing such stupidity, horrible stuff.
Well, you know this FemFest nonsense that was on yesterday with the Women's Council? This is another globalist-funded nonsense.
What's that about, anyway?
FemFest. It's about intersectional feminism. It's about it's okay to hate white.
Oh my God.
Straight men, especially if they're happy with their sex at birth. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, how weird is that?
Cisgender. A cisgender is somebody who is happy, comfortable with the gender that they have, that their parents gave them, on their birth cert.
What they were born with, what they actually are.
Yeah, the one they're comfortable as a man or a woman.
Which is normal people, yeah.
So they're grooming all these young women. They're grooming them towards, and they don't even see it, towards gender neutrality in order to undermine the core family unit. In the future, they don't want a thing called a man and a woman. Regina Doherty, she's after bringing out a new legislation that you can put on, say the parents, 2 females, 2 women. You can put parent 1 and parent 2, but the father is left out of the equation. So eventually these kids are going to grow up and they're going to want to know who their father was or who their mother was, Like, it's kind of falsifying a document.
Unbelievable.
Because they're going to eventually want to know. 2 women can't create a child unless there's an intervention. So it's going to be a whole generation looking for their actual biological connection. So they're changing all of these laws under our nose, Fine Gael are very busy, and Fianna Fáil, subversives, they call them. And that's what really they are. Soros Féin are no better. Now Lynn Boylan, who's a Soros paid pawn, now she wants freedom of speech now to be limited,
Yeah.
She's afraid that there's going to be another Nigel Farage in Ireland. We're getting a bit worried now, that there might be a few people speaking up and not being, that getting over the mental control is kind of breaking down. Because they had the Irish people in a mental bind for a good couple of years, a good few years,
Yeah.
And now people are kind of getting brave enough to say, well, hang on a minute, you're not bullying anyone else about being racist. You know, you're not bullying the migrants who are here in you're not bullying them in their country. When, you know, Peru or any of those people that are here, they're not being bullied by taking the Africans or Asians.
And they won't bully them either, to be honest.
No, there's no interest. It's only about the West. The West has too much wealth, too much power. They're too Christian. So this trilateral commission is busy. They're working up for time. And they're rolling it out now every week. You can barely catch your breath. Now this nonsense, I'm definitely convinced now that they want. I don't think the rural people really know. I mean, I know they know they're being decimated, but I really don't know if they know how. The long-term plan is much more sinister than they fully realise.
No, I don't think they do understand. I think they think that I think they're beginning to see there's something that everybody has a right to be here, this sort of attitude, and when you're born in a country you become that nationality. They have some sort of weird way of thinking of this is normal. That I don't know where.
Well, you can't, because you can't pick and choose. You can't pick and choose your ethnic identity and ancestry. So it's like me going to India, or any white Caucasian Irish of Irish ethnicity going to India and claiming to be Indian. If you can't just drop the other ethnic identity, if you're Nigerian or
even the
Indian, because it's
here actually almost will turn around to you and say, I am Irish. And when you argue that there's no way you are Irish.
Well, you're naturalised Irish.
No, they're not. They come out with stupid things. Well, I have an Irish passport. And you go, that doesn't make you Irish.
Well, if I went to Nigeria and I got a Nigerian passport, would that make me Nigerian? I would have no connection, and I would have no ethnic identity that was Nigerian and no ancestry. But I mean, you can become Irish in character and, you know, as such in culture and that, and have an education and have Irish banter and all of that. You learn that by living in the country. But you can't just wipe out the other half of your identity.
Well, it's not even half.
I mean, your whole identity. Some of them are entirely in Indian or
entirely
Asian or a Nigerian. It's their identity.
So I think Leo, when he was younger, always identified as an Indian. He never identified as me.
Well, I think that they are the ones with the problem, because we don't have a problem with them, but they seem to have I've noticed that with a lot of mixed race people, they seem to have a chip on their shoulder. If they are the ones with the issues, though. But they should just be proud to be both. I mean, he's half and half. But he has to realise he's living in a country that is not, white European, like all Europeans are white Caucasian.
Even when he was interviewed when he was young, it was the thing he said if he got into, this is before, this must have been about 20, the interview, it's on YouTube, and he had just joined Fine Gael. I think he was working in the EU at this stage, and he said if I got in about 10 years or so, I would change everything about the country.
Well, he didn't get our permission, so he can go to hell. This is our country.
But even at that stage, he had planned it and thought it out.
He's an absolute pawn. He's a subversive too. Yeah. And Richard Bruton is another little subversive who's working hard now on this climate study that will come out in March. And I'm telling you, when this thing comes out in March, everyone's face is going to drop to the floor. They are going to work on what we can eat and do and drink and where we can drive. And I mean, look what he's done to the Irish schools. He never ever he didn't go after any other minority, only the Catholic schools. So now he has taken away the baptism barrier, which a lot of people are glad of, but in that case do the same for the other minorities. You can't just pick one and target them only, even if they're the majority, because he wants the door to be wide open now to all this multicultural Only for the Catholic school. The Protestants are allowed to have their school and select based on faith. And of course the Muslims is not even a question. But it's only the Catholics. And I've heard teachers,
because the Protestants would bloody fight, and the Muslims would cause a huge uproar if you went near anything. They would actually probably bomb things if you even suggested.
They are anti-Catholic.
Don't touch them.
Oh, they take your head off. They take your head off.
We're afraid of being Catholics in this country.
But he has no right. And they tried to do that years ago. I heard that Bertie Ahern or somebody said to him, you can't just discriminate against one.
Yes.
The Attorney General. But he worked it out with the Attorney General so it would be rock solid. And now the teachers, there's one or two teachers that have come back and said that they have already had Muslim families coming in with a solicitor and a member of the fake NGO, Soros NGOs, immigration NGOs, to bully the teachers and say to them that they want a prayer room in a Catholic school and they want Arabic classes in a Catholic school because they feel, well, if you can have Irish, now that it's no longer, it's open to everybody, they want their own, and they want Islam to be taught to everyone. And then the teachers said, well, we couldn't do that because then we'd have to do that for every nationality here,
Yes.
We can't have, but you see, he's removed that now. So it does open the door, and they didn't just come as a family, they came with a solicitor, a Muslim solicitor, obviously, and a member of the fake Immigration Council, which is a Soros NGO that we're paying for.
Bob Shite probably was him.
So you see, they're delighted now. There hasn't even, before, they're watching closely, the Muslims, they are already asking for this now, a prayer room. And they've taken the cribs out of the hospital in Crumlin as well. There was murder over that. That was last year.
Actually, they took all the Catholic statues down there.
That it wasn't multi-faith enough, So this is exactly what happened in America years ago, but, they were ahead of us in that sense because they're infested with subversives now. And, you've got to a point where you say happy holidays instead of happy Christmas. Yeah. And I don't think they say happy Easter either. They have another saying for that one as well. So now Mr. Bruton, who's a subversive, absolutely so clear to me anyway, he's moving on now to climate. He's been moved on to the climate to do his job there to wreck the country. That's enslavement. It's enslavement. This carbon tax is only the beginning. So there is a demonstration on the 31st of January by Air Exit outside Dublin about the carbon tax. But I think carbon tax is the least of your worries. They want that land. They want to bankrupt the farmers. I heard there's about 12 suicides, like, a week or something. Like, I heard something ridiculous. Like, there's loads going on in the country that we don't hear about. Yeah. It's not on the news. I mean, did you see that thing during there was a thing ear to the ground during the week. I happened to catch some of it. Yeah. And it was about a Tipperary, Castle Mark was down there anyway, in the country, and he had deaths, and he was a lovely family and everything, but he left a note and he committed suicide. Yeah, he got into debt during that Celtic Tiger, but they were coming after him, and he couldn't cope with it all, and he took his own life.
Oh, geez. And
now the son and daughter have taken over the farm. They've taken over the farm, and now they want to decimate the cattle and dairy market. So apparently all the neighbours anyway heard about this man. I mean, they loved this man. He was a really respected man in the area, a very quiet man, and he was trying to deal with it all by himself. And now his wife is really missing him. She's there on her own and as a widow, and always thought they would be able to enjoy their retirement. But it was mounting. They were putting pressure on him, and a lot of pressure on him. So anyway, they rallied around in the town. They were offering cattle and they were offering land. They were really trying to rally around the family. I just wonder now, do they know what's coming next? I doubt it. Not fully.
Anyway, it was good to talk again, Eileen, to catch up with what's going on.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on the papers next week and see if we can
Oh, well, the papers, I don't rely on them.
Yeah, but sometimes...
If I want the real news, I go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we all have to...
But I do compare it with the fake news on RTE.
Yeah.
And if people could do that themselves and just compare reality and fiction and how they're being manipulated, that would be great. It's actually
good practice to get in to see what they're saying, then get onto YouTube and see what there is. And sometimes it's unbelievable, as you said, the difference of what's going on.
Loads of bits of information, lying via omission, as they say.
Okay, well, listen, thank you for coming on again, and we will talk next week on the Banrion show. Thank you, Eileen. It was fabulous again, full of knowledge. It's fantastic to talk to you again. We'll talk to you on the Banrion show. See you next week. Thanks, Eileen. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a good week. Bye.
You are listening to Irish News Radio and irishnews.net. Email news@irishnews.net.